Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep dark into the twisted mind of the downright terrifying world of my 6th favorite horror game. From jump scares that make your heart skip a beat to creeping atmosphere that lingers long after you've turned off your console. These games have left a lasting mark on me, and I think they'll do the same to you too. So grab some popcorn if you dare, because I'm Professor Retro, and these are 6 of my favorite horror games. So before there was Resident Evil, and before there was Silent Hill, hell even before Sweet Home Terrified Famicom players, there was this. A little game where you just are a pair of floating eyes wandering around a creepy mansion. Welcome to the number 6 spot on my haunted list, Haunted House, on the Atari 2600. One of the earliest attempts to scare the absolute pixels out of players. Released in 1982 by Atari, Haunted House is often called one of the first survival horror games ever made. And while it might not look terrifying by today's standards, back then, this was nightmare fuel for your imagination. The setup, absolutely simple. You're exploring a creepy old mansion in the town of Spookyville. What hell of a name was that? I don't know. Trying to recover pieces of a magic urn belonging to the late Zorba the Sorcerer. Yeah, Zorba's ghost still haunts this place, along with bats, spiders, and other Atari horrors that mostly look like moving pixels, but trust me, they'll kill you all the same. What really made Haunted House stand out was the light mechanic. Most of the time, the screen is completely black. You have to light a match to see where you are. Walls, doors, and objects only appear when you do. But here's the catch. The moment you light the match, enemies can spot you, so you're constantly balancing between being blind and being dead. The sound design deserves a credit too. There's no music, just creepy footsteps, thunder, and your heartbeat speeding up whenever something's nearby. In 1982, this was legitimately eerie. It's like the Atari managed to create tension with 6 pixels and a noise channel. Believe it or not, Haunted House had an early version of an inventory system. You can carry one item at a time. Keys to open doors, parts of the urn, or matches. It doesn't sound like much now, but back then, well, this was a forward-thinking design game. There were 9 difficulty levels, changing things like visibility, enemy speed, and even whether or not you could see the walls. Some modes plunged you into complete darkness, forcing you to rely on memory and luck. It's equal parts brilliant and absolutely cruel, which is basically every Atari game ever made. Haunted House might look primitive now, but it paved the way for everything from Alone in the Dark to Resident Evil. Atari even made a remake of it a few times, the 3D version in 2010, a weird first-person one in 2014, and a surprisingly good modern reboot in 2023 that plays like a stealthy roguelike. Why I like this game, however, it's simplistic and yet scary at the same time. Yes, by today's standards, the game is tame. But think about it when this game came out. Nothing like this was even thought of back then. A game that uses atmosphere and silence to build tension, as well as the use of limited light to give an even more scare factor as well. To me, Haunted House proves that you don't need jump scares to make a good horror game. Before survival horror had a name, before pixels screamed and monsters stalked your dreams, one man created a forest that you were absolutely never meant to enter. This is Forbidden Forest for the Commodore 64. A haunting, bloody, and downright bizarre experience that defined what early gaming nightmares might look like. Released in 1983 by Cosme and developed entirely by Paul Norman, Forbidden Forest is one of the first games to make action, atmosphere, and horror on a home computer, and believe me, it's way darker than you expected for a game that fits on a floppy disk. You play as an archer venturing into a cursed woodland where night never ends and every shadow hides something hungry. There's no backstory, no mission briefing, just a bow, a quiver of arrows, and the creepy dread that something's about to kill you. Right from the start, Forbidden Forest sets the mood. Giant spiders ascend from the trees, monsters frogs leap from the swamps, and flying beasts swoop in out of nowhere. Each creature gets its own level, its own eerie backdrop, and its own way to ruin your day absolutely. The gameplay is simple, but surprisingly tense. You move, aim, and shoot. Timing is everything. Miss a shot, and you're lunch. Arrows can be aimed at different angles, which was a big deal for 1983. And the animation? Pretty smooth for something running on 64 kilobytes of RAM. And when you die, you actually really die. The screen flashes red, and a digitized scream echoes through your speakers. The sound alone probably traumatized a generation of Commodore kids. What really makes Forbidden Forest special is the atmosphere. Paul Norman didn't just program the game, he composed the music too. Each level has this haunting, looping melody that builds a weird sense of dread. It's like you're walking deeper and deeper into a living nightmare. In 1985, Paul Norman followed up with Beyond the Forbidden Forest, featuring another smooth animation, a day-night cycle, and even creepier enemies. But the original, that's the one that set the tone, is considered one of the earliest horror action games ever made, a prototype for everything from Castlevania to Resident Evil in spirit. Yes, Forbidden Forest might look primitive today, but back then it was a horror masterpiece in miniature, proving that imagination and atmosphere could be scarier than any realistic graphics. I've always liked this game. To me, Forbidden Forest is one of those games that, may not scream survival horror, but it shows it. Yes, in true survival horror, you don't have a weapon, but it's not a gun or arsenal, but it's a primitive bow and arrow, and enemy is coming at you from all angles. Now, I did a more detailed video on this game, so I will link to that in the description below. Released in 1991 by Kemco, Uninvited was originally a Mac adventure game from the mid-80s, part of the same eerie series as Deja Vu and Shadowgate. But while those games lean more into noir or fantasy, Uninvited went on full haunted house horror. You wake up from a car crash with your head spinning and your sibling missing. The only clue, a sprawling, creepy mansion nearby. Naturally, you head inside. Because, in horror games, running away is never an option. Inside you uncover a story of a dark magic, a mad warlock, and his doomed apprentice. This mansion is filled with ghosts, traps, and demonic energies that seems to be watching your every move. Now, like Shadowgate, Uninvited uses a menu-based interface. You don't move around freely, you command your way through the nightmare. You use actions like open, look, use, and go to interact with the world. Now, if you think that sounds simple, it's not. One wrong move and, you guessed it, you're dead. Open the wrong door, dead. Picks the wrong item, dead. Take too long exploring, the evil presence consumes you. Uninvited doesn't hold your hand. It expects you to pay attention, experiment, and sometimes, die a few dozen times before figuring things out. For an NES game, Uninvited nails the creepy atmospheres. The music loops, the strange silence in certain rooms, and those unsettling item descriptions. They all add up to something generally haunting. Even though the NES couldn't actually render realistic horror, Uninvited makes you feel trapped. Every click feels like it could unleash something truly horrible. Of course, this was the NES, and Nintendo had a very strict content rules back then. The original version had plenty of references to Satan, demons, and the occult, all toned down or removed for the NES release. Blood becomes red paint, black magic becomes mystic energy, and all the real dark stuff got scrubbed from the game. And still, even censored, it's one of the darkest games on the system. Uninvited never got the same recognition as Shadowgate, but it deserves it. It's a perfect example of how text, imagination, and atmosphere can create more tension than any ever jump scare ever. It's part puzzle game, part ghost story. Even though it'll frustrate you to no end, it's also a rare piece of NES horror that truly gets under your skin. I like Uninvited because 1, I like point-and-click adventure games, and to see this style on the NES was also great to see when I first played Shadowgate and other games like it. Not only that, but the atmosphere gives off something that is odd, here feeling, and you find out why as you progress through the game. In 1996, PlayStation, A Mansion, Zombies, Resident Evil wasn't just a game, it was a wake-up call for horror in video games. I mean, who thought running out of ammo could feel scarier than any ghost or vampire? You play as either Jill Valentine or Chris Redfield, members of the Elite Stars team, sent to investigate a series of grisly murders on the outskirts of Raccoon City. What they find? The infamous Spencer Mansion, full of traps, puzzles, and, oh yeah, who could forget the zombies? Everyone feels alive in the most terrifying way possible. And yes, you will scream at the first zombie, or maybe the second, or the fourth, when you realize your bullets are way too precious to waste on anything that isn't crawling straight at your face. Survival horror means survival. Ammo with scarce held items are limited, and the save system? A typewriter that your better prey isn't a death trap, it says. Every decision matters. Do you explore the creepy hallway or loot? Or run and hope for the best? Oh, and don't forget the puzzles. Oh, those puzzles. From sliding statues to key codes, the mansion isn't just alive with zombies, it's alive with brain teasers that make you feel like a detective, until a zombie pops out and kills you from behind. And let's not forget the BOWs, otherwise known as the bioorganic weapons. These grotesque, monstrous things are what set Resident Evil apart. It's not just about zombies, it's about mutations, science gone wrong, and the constant feeling that the next hallway hides something far worse. The fixed camera and tank controls might feel clunky today, but that's part of the charm. It builds tension like no modern shooter can. The 2002 GameCube remake, gorgeous, terrifying, perfect, but the original, pure unpolished fear, and that's why it works. So what makes Resident Evil a pure classic horror game? Well, it's the atmosphere, the tension, the scarcity of resources, and the thrill of surviving against impossible odds. It defines survival horror and set a standard that still echoes in today's game. It's scary, frustrating, it's brilliant, and yes, you'll love every terrifying second. Now, I love this game, as you can tell by some of the early entries so far on this list. I love survival horror games. And this is one of those games that makes you want to be on your seat all the time. Conserving your ammo, conserving your resources, and trying to find the reason why the bioorganic weapons still exist. Outlast. Imagine me trapped in an abandoned asylum alone in the dark, and the only thing keeping you alive is a tiny camcorder with night vision. That is Outlast, the game that turns survival horror on its head by saying, you can't fight back. You play as Miles Upshur, an investigative journalist with a nose for trouble. You sneak into Mount Massive Asylum after a tip-off about shady experiments. What you find is worse than anything you could ever imagine. Patients have gone mad, twisted corporate experiments, and enemies that don't care if you live or die. And here's the kicker. You can't fight back. That's right, no guns, no melee, nothing. Your only tools are running, hiding, and hope you don't die screaming in a hallway. What really sets Outlast apart is its mechanic. Carry a camcorder with night vision, vital for navigating the pitch-black asylum. Batteries are limited, so every quarter becomes a nerve-wracking choice. Do you go forward or risk running out of juice in the dark? And hiding, well, that's not optional. Closets, vents, and undertables, they're not just safety spots, they're your lifeline. Wrong move, and you lunch for Chris Walker, one of the most terrifying enemies in modern horror. And here's a fun fact. Screaming like a maniac does not help. I tried. It does not work. Outlast isn't just scary because of the, jump scares. There are plenty of those. It's the atmosphere, dim lighting, distant screams, flickering lights, the sound of footsteps behind you. It creates constant tension. And the story is dripping with psychological horror, unethical experiment, insane patience, and the creepiest end that something much bigger and darker is going on. You're never really safe, and that's exactly the point. The narrative is delivered mostly through environmental storytelling, documents, notes, and security footage. There's also the Whistleblower DLC, which gives you a peek behind the curtain at the Markov Corporation. It's not just jump scares, there's a story about human greed, corruption, and the horrors of playing God. Honestly, the story alone is worth experiencing. Now, I've loved Outlast since I've seen other YouTubers play it and went out and got it. I love horror games and I love survival horror games, and this truly is a survival horror game. You have no weapons, all you have is a camcorder and a limited use of batteries. I've never beaten this game, but I intend to at some point in my life. In 1993, CD-ROMs were the future, full-motion videos were a novelty, and horror games were mostly pixelated nightmares. Then came Seventh Guest, a game that didn't just scare you and immersed you in its world. Developed by Trilobite, The Seventh Guest was revolutionary. It was one of the first games that really took advantage of CD-ROM technology. Full-motion video, pre-rendered 3D graphics, and eerie audio that still holds up today. And yes, it scared people in 1993, not with jump scares, but with atmosphere, suspense, and a creepy toy maker who, well, let's just say had some issues. You play as one of several guests invited to Strauss Mansion. Each room hides puzzles, and each puzzle is tied to the mansion's dark history. Strauss, not just a villain, he's a puppeteer, pulling the strings of a twisted game. Solving puzzles isn't just a mechanic, it's how the story unfolds. Fail too many and, well, you die. Brutally sometimes, creepy, right? The heart of The Seventh Guest is its puzzles, from sliding blocks to memory games to logic challenges. Every room tests your brain. The mansion is enormous, with secret rooms and hidden notes, giving it a real sense of exploration. Sure, some puzzles can be frustrating, and you might find yourself clicking the same thing 10 times, but when you finally solve it, it's incredibly satisfying. Where The Seventh Guest really shines is its atmosphere. The combination of full-motion video, haunting piano music, and pre-rendered environments makes the mansion feel alive and dangerous. You never know what's behind a door or which guest fate you'll witness next. It's psychological horror at its absolute finest, before psychological horror became a buzzword. The Seventh Guest isn't just a game, it's a piece of gaming history. It proved that CD-ROMs could hold cinematic experiences and paved the way for other full-motion video and puzzle-driven games. Its sequel, The 11th Hour, tried to do even more, but the first game still has that magical, eerie charm. It's one of the reasons why I love this game. And that's a wrap on my 6 favorite horror games, ladies and gentlemen. Which of these have you played? Which one scared you the most? Or maybe there's a hidden gem I didn't mention that gave you nightmares. Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for more gaming content, and ring the bell so you never miss a scare. Until next time, happy Halloween and stay spooky.